Good
And
evening,
those,
everyone. Welcome to Necessary Trouble. We are so excited that you've chosen to spend your evening with us. And whether you're a familiar face or joining us for the first time, we're really glad that you're
Speaking.
here.
I'm not going to interrupt her while she's speaking.
If this is your first meeting,
They'll
we'd
put
love
the
to stay
chat here.
connected with you.
I'll put the chat
So
up over here in just a minute.
I'm hearing some echo. Okay.
we might, those of us who are not yet muted might want to mute ourselves, please.
Okay, great. If this is your first meeting, we'd love to stay connected with you. So please drop your name and your email in the chat. And if you'd rather not post it publicly, no problem at all. Just send it to Karen or Lisa in a private message. A couple of quick housekeeping items before we get started. We ask everyone to stay muted during the presentation so that everyone can hear our speakers clearly. Throughout the meeting, though, we absolutely want to hear from you. So please keep those questions and comments coming in the chat. We'll have time for question and answer with several of our speakers. This evening is going to be a great meeting. We're celebrating some important wins, hearing from outstanding candidates, and learning how these statewide races affect our everyday lives, and most importantly, sharing ways every one of us can make a difference. So let's jump in. To kick us off, I'd like to welcome Becky Butler back. And Becky is going to help us celebrate some of the recent victories and remind us why this work matters so much. Becky?
Thank you, PJ. And some of you might know it's very nice to see everybody. It's lovely to see all the familiar faces and lovely to see what I think are a couple of new faces. Welcome, welcome. Those of you who I've known for a while might know that I was very much on a kind of out of contact on a river trip during a lot of events in the last few weeks. And the first thing I found out when I got off the river was that there was an incredible amount of good news. And we don't always have good news. And so it feels really important to celebrate it. And so we wanted to start this meeting by just celebrating some really important recent wins. So, as a reminder, these two are related to the special legislative session. And there were two very important decisions that got made at that session. And one was there would be no effort to eliminate QR codes in the 2026 elections. And that would have meant an absolutely logistical disaster for the counties. So that was extremely important. And of course, there was also the decision not to redraw the maps. And this is in direct, I think that those wins are in direct relationship to a whole lot of work. And so, those of you who went down during the legislative session, who made phone calls, who sent emails, who went to protests inside or outside, who went to committee meetings, thank you, thank you, thank you. And so much gratitude and appreciation. It was a very big win. We know that that effort to redistrict will be back again, but it was excellent to win round one. The second huge win was the news that there would be no ICE detention center warehouses in Social Circle or Oakwood, Georgia. Enormous wins, and again, in direct relationship to the depth and level of opposition. And we are really lucky in Necessary Trouble to have one of the leaders of that opposition in Social Circle, who is part of Necessary Trouble, but also heads her own indivisible group, Indivisible Boldly Blue. And Gareth, will you just take a couple of minutes and celebrate with us and say whatever you would like to?
Thank you, Becky, and thank you everyone from Necessary Trouble. This was a victory of resistance and a victory that was caused by a very broad range of people coming together. you might be familiar with the fact that there were these warehouses across the United States, one of them in Social Circle and one of them in Oakwood near Gainesville, that were purchased by the Department of Homeland Security and designated to become detention centers for ICE. There was a sustained campaign to oppose this horrible move. And as I know all of you are so aware, ICE is continuing its operations throughout the United States, including many horrible, terrible actions. But we want to just pause for just a short moment of victory in that we stopped the ICE warehouse detention expansion plan. And the Department of Homeland Security has been forced to redirect and to try to come up with new ways to enact its horrible goals. The popular opposition to this has been unmistakable, and we are so grateful for Necessary Trouble's support. And we had a victory party on July 2nd in Social Circle where some troublers came and showed up in person. Just want to acknowledge that amid the landscape of terrible things that are happening, there are victories. We are making positive difference, and we do have reason to take a moment to celebrate together. Thanks, Becky.
Thank you so
Beautiful.
much. Thank you so much, Gareth. I don't know about all of you, but hearing stories like this reminds me of why we do this work. These victories didn't happen by accident. They happened because people organized, showed up, and refused to give up. And that's exactly why this evening is so important. A few more months will shape the elections that affect every community across Georgia, and each one of us has a role to play. To help connect the dots and set the stage for the rest of tonight's conversation, I'd like to welcome Becky back to talk about these statewide races and how they matter and how the people we elect make decisions that touch our everyday lives. Becky, back to you.
Thank you, PJ. Yes, exactly. So we are now going to pivot from gratitude for victories to what is immediately ahead of us. And it is an incredibly important year. Nationally, but most particularly in Georgia, if it's there is an extraordinary window right now. And before talking about what is possible, I want to talk about where we are right now. And I want to just post this graphic so that people can see this very vivid representation of who has been in power in Georgia for the last 20 years. In the executive branch, right, in the governor's mansion, in the state and the state house and the state senate, and in the public service commission. It has been a pretty stunning run. And given the current federal government, I want to say in letters very tall that no significant positive statewide change will happen in Georgia until Democrats gain political power. And I want to say that again because it is the most important thing we can remember from tonight, which is no statewide significant positive change will happen in Georgia until Democrats gain political power. And what is at stake is basically everything. Everything we care about, right? District maps, voting rights, reproductive freedoms, LGBTQ, immigrant rights, racial justice, every single issue, every work group that Necessary Trouble has, we will be able to make without genuine political wins. We will be able to make small change. We will affect the lives, no matter what, of individuals, of families, maybe in certain communities, but we will not make significant change unless Democrats gain political power in Georgia. And this is the year that we get to do it, right? There is an amazing window, and I want to show you some numbers. So in 2024, as a reminder, Kamala lost Georgia by 2.2 percentage points. In 2026, so far, Democrats have overperformed 2024 presidential numbers by an average of 10 percentage points. That is extraordinary math. All right. Of the races that there have been so far, of 41 races, Dems have overperformed in 36 out of 41. We have been doing extremely well. There is a window of opportunity this year that may not come again. And so we are going to be spending tonight talking about the election. We're going to be we're really fortunate, we will be hearing from the 4 candidates that Necessary Trouble has adopted. First, we'll hear from Sheila Edwards and Peter Hubbard, running from the PSC. Then we'll hear from our 2 Georgia House candidates, Mishael White in House District 81, Beth Fuller in House District 53, and then we'll hear how every single person, we hope that every person on this call will find a place to plug in to the election work that we will be doing this year. And then, as many of you already know, Necessary Trouble has a deep commitment to supporting democratic rural change. And so we will end by hearing about a very important deep canvassing effort in Southwest Georgia. So much gratitude for being with us tonight. A reminder that if you are new, if this is your first Necessary Trouble meeting, please put your name and email address in the chat. And thank you for being here. And on that note, I'm going to turn it over to the lead of our PSC effort and work group, Beth Levine.
Thank you, Becky, and hello, everybody. I'm so thrilled to be here to introduce our 2 candidates, Peter Hubbard and Sheila Edwards. It just piggybacks on what you were saying, Becky. This is our year. They are the right candidates and the right issues, and the time is now to take over the majority of the Public Service Commission, which is what they will do for us. So, that majority, I just want to make it clear, is going to actually, in the state, change the lives of people. Their utility bills can go down, the air can get cleaner, the data center issue can be made accountable. They can do things that we will feel right away, which is part of why I'm so passionate about the Public Service Commission. So I was going to introduce Sheila first. I think she's here. I'm not sure. But
I'm here.
Great. Before I do that, just a reiteration of what Becky said. Please, we want your questions. Peter and Sheila will answer them after you've heard from both of them. Okay. And you can direct questions to either or both of them when it's Q&A time. So with that, it is my distinct pleasure to introduce Sheila Edwards to Necessary Trouble. Sheila is running for the District 5 position and brings a strong record of leadership, advocacy, and proven campaign experience. We saw that because she won her primary straight out. There was no runoff. That was so amazing, Sheila.
Thank you.
In addition to that, she has served in senior leadership roles with Georgia's democratic infrastructure, helping to strengthen our message and deliver results across the whole state. Sheila is passionate about the needs of Georgia's citizens for affordable and clean energy, and you will hear that passion in her voice as I turn it over now. Thank you, Sheila.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you all having me this afternoon to speak with your group. I'm very familiar with your work. I did win the primary in May without a runoff, but I need you to back up a little bit and go back to 2022 when I also ran with Patty Duran and won a Democratic nomination without a runoff. And I think we went until about August before they turned around and took our races off the ballot, left the Republicans in place, and half a dozen rate increases. Here we are. And I decided to run again this year because I wanted to finish the job that I started. In 2022, nobody was paying attention to the PSC. folks didn't even know what the PSC was, and they thought it was a local race. And spending our time educating folks and letting them know that each time you open up your bill, you're impacted by a decision by the PSC. Each time you see a rate increase in your bills, you're impacted by the PSC. And even if you're not on getting your utilities from Georgia Power, the EMCs follow suit. Whatever Georgia Power does, they seek to do the same thing. So I'm running to become the critical third vote on the Public Service Commission. Yes, Dr. Alicia Johnson and Peter Hubbard won in November, and they won on the mere fact that people are concerned about their pocketbooks. They're concerned about affordability. The decisions coming out of Washington are plaguing our state, and people are having to decide whether they can afford their utilities or keeping a roof over their heads. Seniors are having to decide whether they can afford to get their medication or paying their utility bills. And the same impacts with veterans, same impacts with anybody across the board. And they're struggling to keep, utilities on in the dead of winter or the hottest days of the summer. And Georgia Power is just so happy to cut them off to, lead them in a state of flux. And in order to get back on, they have to come up with the utility bill plus late fees and everything else and reconnection fees. And it's just not right. Georgia Power is $1 billion corporation, and that's a billion with a large B, because if you look at their quarterly reports, each quarter they're reporting $1 billion. And if they could take 1 billion and put it in place to help marginalized communities, to help Black and brown communities that are suffering the most, when it comes to the data centers, they're putting those things anything south of I-20, it's going there. They're not putting it in Alpharetta or Buckhead or Sandy Springs. They're putting it in communities that they don't care about. And to the extent that we need data centers, we need to have something in place that regulates them. They're just coming to our communities. It's an open door, open season where they're flooding in because they're getting corporate welfare. They're getting monies to come in. And we have parents and children being kicked off of welfare. And here we are willing to support corporate welfare. So I have a problem with that. And I'm not upset with anybody trying to make money, because I'm a business person. We should all be able to make money, but I don't believe you should be able to rape and pillage a community. I don't believe you should be able to put your boot on the back of ratepayers and say, pay us or else. I don't think that's appropriate. And because the Georgia Power is such a monopoly in our state, they get away with this stuff. And they have people at the ready when it comes to the General Assembly that's going to do their bidding. They have lobbyists and lawyers that's going to do their bidding. And they have created a situation with the Public Service Commission where they will do their bidding. And thank God for Peter and Dr. Alicia, but unfortunately, they can't get very much done, if anything, unless there's a third vote elected to this PSC. And I'm that third critical vote. I tell everybody, and folks may not believe it, but I believe this is the most critical race on our ballots, because it talks about people's quality of life. It talks about their ability to afford some basic things in terms of utilities. I wrote an article for my community newspaper, I think it was in May, because May was Mental Health Month. And I connected the dots between mental health and PSC. And folks were like, oh, there's no relationship to that. And I'm like, yeah, there is. Because if you're on the margin and you're sitting in your home and your utilities have now been turned off, and you're in the dark, you're sitting in the heat, or you're sitting in the cold, what do you think that's going to do to your mental health? And what does it do to families who can't provide heat for their children? Are they now bad parents because, they can't afford to get their powers turned back on? Will their children be taken away? I mean, the scenario goes across the board in terms of these things. If you're on a medical device, do you now suffer the consequences of not having your equipment powered? And I think the last thing I lead with is the solar program. It is a clean way to allow people to do something different than Georgia Power. And they have such a small program that I think it was last time I checked 5,000 slots. And if you look at the millions of people that are in Georgia, the rooftops that are in Georgia, they don't mean to provide a better way in terms of being able to access solar. Their whole thing is this check a box. We did it, and let the rest of them eat cake. And I don't believe that should be happening. I believe that we should have decision
Hey, I
makers.
didn't mean to call you. I'm sorry.
Oh, I'm sorry. Are you talking to me or no?
I think
Okay.
somebody's not muted.
I believe we should have decision makers on the PSC that are making decisions for people. My slogan is people before profits. And I really believe that. And I got into I should say this, I got into the race for PSC because I opened up my power bill and it was over $500 and I live alone. And I'm like, it's impossible for me to have generated $500 worth of power or utilities. And I called Georgia Power and they're like, oh, no, it's right. And we'll come to your house, we'll check your meter, we'll do whatever, but we think it's right. And I'm like, it's absolutely wrong. And that's when I started doing my homework and finding out, what was going on and who's making these decisions. And fast forward to now, and I opened up my power bill last week, and it was $600. So, I'm even more pissed off about it. But again, I'm running to help other people. And
we're so grateful, Sheila. We really are. We thank you so much. We're going to hear more from you in the Q&A.
sure.
And now, thank you. I'm going to introduce someone that you have seen just last year here, our current and future PSC Commissioner, Peter Hubbard. His last election last year was to fill 1 year out of a 6-year term, and now we're going to elect him for a full 6-year term. So it's very exciting to know and see what Peter has done in terms of shining a light, no pun intended, on the power of the PSC and how it has operated to approve all of Georgia Power's requests to grow their obscene profits, which we already heard about from Sheila.
Yes.
So I'm going to let him share all of his good efforts with you directly. With that, Peter, it's all yours.
Thank you, Beth. And thank you all for indulging. I gave my children a rain check yesterday for the water park. So we find ourselves back in Clayton County at the Spivey Water Park, and taking a little breather so that I could join you all. And Beth, you're right. I mean, I did earn that 1-year term on the commission, and I'm halfway through it. And I think what I've seen already is that there's a lot of work to be done, but it's underway. And what we're doing is in the latter half of the year, this next 6 months, we're going to do a closer look at the methodology by which data centers are paying for some of the costs that are being incurred here. And it's a first step in that investigation. We're going to have a full rate case in 2028. But that graphic that was shown just a few moments ago really is indicative. For the last 2 decades, the leadership in this state has been Republican. And we're already starting to see some change at the commission where we broke through and flipped 2 of those seats, where we've had 6 rate increases over the last few years. But for the first time in a long time, they've started to go very, very incrementally, but they've started to go in the other direction. And we can continue to push in that direction. We can continue to hold data centers accountable. We can deliver clean energy and we can lower folks' power bills. We can only do that when we have leadership in place that actually centers folks and folks and what they're paying on their power bills instead of putting corporate interests first. And that's what has happened under Republican leadership at the Public Service Commission for a long time, is always rubber stamping and allowing what the power company says is best for Georgia to prevail. We know, and we see this in states like Texas and others that are embracing clean energy, that they are driving down the cost of electricity. And we can have that same future in our state of Georgia as well. We just need to have the leadership and we need to have the votes, the raw power to do it. And that's where flipping the commission this November, which we absolutely can do, is so critically important. Flipping it to a new majority that again centers folks and puts consumers at the center of what we do. That's critical. It's critical that we have that majority going into the 2028 integrated resource plan when we decide what sort of resources we're going to be building into the future, and when we retire our coal plants, when we replace fossil gas with clean energy. And it's followed right by a rate case. And that's the full cost accounting of what data centers are paying. So the stakes are incredibly high, no matter what kind of nonsense happens at the General Assembly in terms of redistricting. When we lock in the majority this November, we will do so for the next 4 years on the Public Service Commission. And we'll be able to do a lot of good with that time on our hands. So I just want to reiterate the stakes of what we can do with the Public Service Commission, Sheila and I, and Dr. Johnson as well, the three of us. And I'm really excited for what we can do with this 6-year runway, a full 2 sets really of integrated resource plans and rate cases. And just a lot of good work that has been neglected for a long time that we can do. And we've already started, but again, we need that third vote. So those are the stakes. Would love to answer any questions that folks have about the Public Service Commission, but I really am incredibly grateful for Necessary Trouble and everyone who is helping pitch in to raise awareness of the PSC and what we can do with that commission when we regain control and put people at the center of what we're doing there. Thanks. Back to you, Beth.
Yeah, thank you, Peter. I cannot tell you how many times when I'm down at the hearings and Peter makes his motion to do something that would really help everybody lower our bills, Alicia seconds, and then of course, we lose 3-2. So when we get Sheila in there, that is going to flip, and they really can do some things pretty quickly, I think, to help us. But I'm going to start the questions with one for you, Sheila, and that question is, who is your opponent and what is their story? Oh, you're muted.
My opponent is a gentleman by the name of Josh Tolbert. I think his claim to fame is he ran in a Senate race earlier this year and was beaten by or maybe it was last year. He ran for Jason Estevez's seat, and he was beaten by a Democrat. And I don't have a lot of knowledge about him beyond that. I think he's just somebody who woke up one day and said, "Okay, I want to be on the PSC." I don't know any information about his advocacy in our community on any issues, or even him speaking out relative to some of the complaints and concerns that citizens have had across the board when they've come to the PSC meetings. I think he's going to be Trisha Pridemore 2.0. I think he's painted himself as somebody who's, middle of the road and understands the plight of people. But I want to see that in your actions. I want to see that in your voice. I want to see you take a stand on issues that people have been complaining about for the last several years. So stepping forward and running for office is wonderful. I don't want to talk badly about anybody wanting to do that, but we've got some really serious issues right now. And we're not trying to elect the most popular person or the person who, is wedged over into a corner. We're trying to elect somebody who's going to help people. And that's who I am. Somebody who's going to make decisions based on people. And if my opponent can show some difference, I'm happy to take a look at it. But it's really hard to compare yourself to somebody who doesn't have a record of doing very much of anything. I've got a record of working in our community. I've got a record of working on issues, being the person that folks call me to get involved with issues, to be their voice. I've got a record of, again, helping Democrats get elected across the state, incumbents get reelected, and new members getting elected to the General Assembly. My background also includes having worked with David Scott as his first district director. And, one thing I can tell you that I learned from David Scott is never to judge people. Always be willing to open the door and see who they are. But I think if people open the door and see who this guy is, they're going to see that he's not the person that they need to be voting on their behalf in January. He's going to be
That's
the
for sure.
he's going to be the person that's going to take over what Tricia Pridemore was doing,
Right.
which was watching, listening, and then voting against your self-interest. So I'm urging people to don't think about me and don't think about the other guy. Think about yourself. Think about your families, and then go to the polls and make a decision. And if you need some incentive, take your power bill with you. You know.
I love that. Thank you.
Take that into the booth with you. You know, they stop you from taking everything else into the booth. I'm sure they won't stop you from taking your power bill.
I
And you
love
can
that. I think maybe we can make that a slogan.
yeah, you
But
can
before
glance
we go there, Peter,
you can glance at that and then make a decision.
thank you, Sheila. And Peter,
You're
for
welcome.
you, one of our questions is, do you find the farmers in South Georgia who are dealing with the drought and the extreme weather are starting to believe in climate change?
Is that for me or
Yeah, that one was for Peter.
okay?
This question was about climate change. Is that
And
right?
are the farmers in South Georgia who are actually dealing with it, are they beginning to recognize the reality of it?
Sure, sure. I hesitate to reveal my age, but I'm 46 years old and old enough now to recognize that in my lifetime I have seen changes. I think we all intuitively know this, right? We're being asked to just suck it up and deal with it, really. But I just see a different way. I see that we can embrace clean energy, and what that does is that helps us to address climate change. I see that also helping to lower folks' power bills and to just take responsibility for for what we're doing. You will kind of get the sense from Republicans, and especially the gentleman that I'm running against, Fitz Johnson, the same person I ran against last time. They don't really have very many good arguments when it comes to climate change. And so you'll hear things like, well, we don't want to turn our state into a socialist state. But I would argue that we have already a form of Republican socialism where they are privatizing the benefits and socializing the costs of climate change onto the backs of you and me rather. And we're left to deal with it with the incredible heat and the effects of heat on human health. And I just think that the best way that we can deal with that is to do the right thing in the first place, which is to embrace those technologies that do not emit carbon and add to the climate change problem. And when we do that, we can start to reverse the changes that we're seeing, or at least slow them down. I know that that's a big task, but we have to start somewhere. We need to start in our own backyard. And we also need to think about those ways and how we're going to be, frankly, living in the future. Maybe we need resiliency centers where folks can go in times of crisis and when it's incredibly hot out to cool down. There are solutions out there. We just need to embrace them. We need to have the vision and the leadership to deal with them. Climate change is a global problem where we are dumping our emissions into the public space and hoping others will deal with it. But those chickens are coming home to roost, and we feel it, we know it intuitively, and now we're seeing it explicitly this year when the power company came to us and asked for $912 million in storm cost recovery from mostly Hurricane Helene and other storms that they contributed to with their carbon emissions. So we need to understand what the problem is so that we can address this problem and start to come up with solutions. We have solutions. We need to implement the solutions. And we need that third vote on the commission to do that.
Yes, and that's what we're going to deliver. That is the plan. So in keeping with that, and as our final question for each of you, and I'll let you go first, Sheila. We have like maybe a minute plus for each of you.
Okay.
What do you think is the best way to educate voters about the importance of the PSC elections?
Well, I think we have to utilize all resources that we have at our disposal, but we also have to meet people where they are. I spent a lot of time in South Georgia, meeting with those folks, talking with them, listening to their issues. And a lot of them have anointed themselves as my ambassador in South Georgia. And I'm counting on them for November. But again, being able to listen to those folks, a lot of, I think Metro Atlanta is going to take care of Metro Atlanta because of the population and the demographics and everything else. But the people in South Georgia and Middle Georgia feel like they've been ignored. Their issues are not concerns of, big city Atlanta, and that people don't care about them. And I've had to, spend a lot of time in South Georgia, spend a lot of time having conversations, meeting the decision makers down there, and meeting the people who have the ears of other people. And, they're not, operating sexy campaigns, down in South Georgia. They're mom and pop situations. They, I call it the chicken circuit or chitlin circuit. And it's who can contact who, and who do they trust down there that's going to say whatever they need. I've got people down there printing off my materials and putting it in the hymn books of the church, the programs during Sunday, and just utilizing each and every resource that we can. And not, my most important thing would be not to ignore these folks, because I believe they are going to be the linchpin for us in winning this state.
That's great. Thank
Yeah.
you. So it's everywhere you can get to, especially
Exactly.
down south. And
Exactly.
Peter, would you like to add to that?
Yeah, I'll just say simply that every month everyone has to open up a power bill, and they see that frustratingly high power bill, and that's a chance to maybe post your power bill on social media and say, hey, I'm pretty frustrated by this, but there's something I can do about it this November 3rd, and that's a vote to flip this Public Service Commission and finish the job. And there's lots of opportunities, but I know we've got our work cut out for us. Last year in the special election, only 1.5 million people voted out of 7 million active voters. So that just goes to show we've got a lot of education to continue to do. PSC regulates how much you pay on your power bill and where that energy comes from. Simple as that. And if you can help spread the word and let people know that this is the first chance in decades to flip the commission to a pro-consumer majority, so that we don't have to suffer through these high power bills and data centers getting sweetheart deals on our backs, I think that's a compelling argument. We could just spread the word.
Absolutely. And that's what we're going to do. And those of you who haven't already signed up to get involved in the PSC team here at Necessary Trouble, you can put your name in the chat. There are myriad ways to get involved in whatever meets your particular skill and interest. And with that, I think I give it back to Becky now. Is that right?
That's
Well,
right.
if I may, can I say one thing?
Yes.
I think it's really important for, we run around trying to register people to vote, but we really need to look at the people who are already registered that are not voting. And we have to figure out how to motivate those people and get them out. I won my race by 500,000 votes, but that, and everybody's like, well, you did great. I need Ossoff's numbers. I need 1 million votes. And so, we need to figure out how to get those people motivated. And again, they need to look at their utility bills. Thank you.
That is so true. Thank you for that. Yes. Thank you, Sheila. And thank you, Peter. Okay.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
And lots of gratitude to Peter and to Sheila and to Beth. Much appreciation to all of you.
You're welcome.
And before we leave, especially it means so much in terms of the folks who step up to run. This is such brutal work, right? It is such brutal work. These folks on here talking to us tonight, they are our heroes, right? They are our heroes. So tremendous gratitude. And before we leave this kind of cluster of work related to PSCs, I just want to call people's attention to the data center town hall that is listed in the chat. So please take a look at the chat for that. And let me go ahead and share my screen again. And what I want to pivot to here we have two categories of candidates that we are that Necessary Trouble is supporting this year. And one is Sheila and Peter in terms of the PSC, and the other is our two state house representatives. And we are supporting them in large measure because we want to flip the Georgia State House. And I want to talk a little bit about that before we hear from our candidates. And for starters, I want to call your attention to these two photographs, both taken by our own troubler, Karen McCowan, the GOP caucus and the Democratic caucus. And I bet you can figure out which is which. And which of those looks more like Georgia, right? Which of those looks more like Georgia? And yet, which of them is currently dominating the Georgia State House? As the slide says, this house needs flipping. Let me talk about how crucial this is at this moment, which is that this is our best chance to flip the Georgia House before gerrymander districts are implemented for 2028. We talked earlier about our tremendous victory, that during the legislative special session, there were no drawn districts. They're going to come back. They are probably going to come back after the November elections, maybe November, maybe December. If Keisha wins for governor, you bet they are going to come back because they want to ensure that she is blocked in whatever way possible. It is crucial that we flip the House, and the amazing thing is that we can do it. So here's where we are right now. So there are 180 state house representatives. And right now, 81 of those are Democrats, 99 of those are Republicans. In order for us to win the majority, we need to flip 10 seats this year. We need to flip 10 Georgia State House seats. And I want to talk about how and why we can do it this year. So these are the most obvious ones, okay? In these three, there are three districts in Georgia that Kamala actually won in 2024, but that are currently being held by represented by Republicans, those districts. And one of those, 53, North Fulton, is one of the districts that we will be working in, right? That's our Beth Fuller who is running, that you will be hearing from. She is running in a district that Kamala won. We should have this district, right? This should belong to Democrats. We can do this. So there are those three. Then you get to the 7 districts that Kamala got 45% to 49.9% of the vote in 2024. So that's 7 more. And then we get to 11 districts that Kamala got 40 to 44.9 of the vote. And if you look at these districts, you look at the bottom left, District 81, Henry County, that is our Mishael White, whom you will also be hearing from. So in this group, we are supporting 2 of these. If you put all those together and you remember, right, you remember what we talked about at the beginning of the meeting, which is that Democrats nationally have been overperforming our 2024 presidential numbers by about 10%. So if we can perform, if we Dems can beat our 2024 numbers by roughly 10 points, which is happening all over the country, then there are 21 House seats that are in range for this year, and we need 10 of those. And so if we need 10, Necessary Trouble is taken on 2. And I want to invite every single person on this call before you get off the call today to find a way to plug in, and we'll be talking about that later. But first, I am very much looking forward to having you guys all meet our candidates. And in order to introduce them, I'm going to turn this over to Pam Woodley.
Hi, it gives me great pleasure to introduce my good friend, Mishael White. Mishael is running for the second time in State House 81, which is the bulk of it is in Henry County. And the reason we are feeling so bullish on Mishael is both because he's a great candidate and a great man, but also in 2024, when he got 43% of the vote, along with Kamala, Henry County was the only county in Georgia out of 159 that actually trended blue in November of 2024 during that red wave. And in his primary, just this May, Mishael got 20% more votes than his Republican opponent, who happens to be one of the most extreme MAGA people in our entire Georgia assembly. So Mishael is a commercial truck driver, and with his wife, parents of 6 children in a very close family. Mishael, take it away.
Hey, how's everybody doing? Thank you so much, my good friend Pam, for such a great introduction. Necessary trouble. I have a saying whenever I'm getting into some good trouble with necessary trouble, which is this: I'm in the house with necessary trouble, getting in some good trouble, which is why my opponent is in big trouble. And she knows she's in big trouble. Look, we can do this, guys. I've been out doing the work. Pam kind of alluded to it that the district itself is shifting blue. After the loss in 2024, I never stopped. Continue talking to folks, even continue knocking doors, and I think that work, the results of that work, actually showed up in this last primary cycle. Just yesterday, myself and my campaign manager, Blake Robinson, we went to a back to school event right here at one of the churches in a strategic district, that precinct that we're targeting, which is Glen Haven Church. And I was out there, talking with folks, engaging with the students and the kids and things of that nature. And my opponent wasn't out there. And Pam also spoke about how extreme my opponent is. If you look at a lot of her votes, even when Republicans themselves are voting on a bill of yes on a bill that's a good bill, she's one of the no votes most times. So she's running on an obstructionist agenda. And what she's a MAGA activist. Now she's trying to moderate a little bit, trying to come off as if she actually cares about the people of the district. But the good thing that we have going for us in terms of that is now she has a record that we can look at. She hasn't had any town halls. She hasn't sent out any newsletters or engaged her constituents in any way. And so now that it's election time, now that we're getting here into the home stretch, she's feeling the heat a little bit. And when folks ask me, why do you believe you can win this race? And I tell them it's because of the people. My faith has always been in the people. And this is what I tell folks. Look, the American people may be distracted. They may even be discouraged, but they are not stupid. They know a bad deal when they see one. And what they're seeing from MAGA right now is that this is a bad deal. It's not working for our families. Affordability is through the roof. Inflation is steadily trending up. We have an administration who's making off the cuff decisions in terms of going to war with Iran. And so the American people know that things are on the wrong track, and they want to get things on the right track, even here in Georgia. And so for all you fine folks who took the time out to hear from myself and all the other candidates, I want to thank you. It's going to be because of the work that you guys put in on these campaigns up and down the ballot which is going to create that blue wave that we plan on surfing to a majority in the state house. It's been a long time coming. Republicans have had their way in this state for the better part of the last 2 decades, and we see what it's gotten working people. And so I'm out and about in the community talking with folks, letting them know that, hey, I'm one of you. I know what it is to get up and go to work every day and then still have to think about, what am I going to short on this end of the table so I can make ends meet on the other end of the table. And so, with all the things that we have going for us, we are energized, we're unified, we have a strong top of the ticket, a strong slate of candidates. We are going to get the job done, and I look forward to being inaugurated in January, along with Beth Fuller, as the new state reps for District 81 and District 53, and working together to bring real change that the Georgians are so needed and deserve. So thank you guys so much. I appreciate you, and we're going to get it done.
Thank you, Michelle. One of the questions in the chat was, what are the top 3 things you would like to implement when you win?
Oh, maternal health, maternal mortality is something that's important to me, and it's a big issue in Georgia, but also in Henry County. A greater part of the district itself is rural, and so in a lot of these communities, there are places where people are 20 to 30 minutes away from the closest hospital. The next best thing they have is an urgent care, and if you're a woman who's in labor, time is of the essence, right? And so I'm proud that one of the things we were able to do in 2025 was to put together Henry County's first maternal mortality town hall at Victory Tabernacle Church. This was in conjunction with the mayor of McDonough, several maternal health organizations, and we brought regular folks together, and we had the conversation on, okay, how do we broach this issue and actually get something done. So for me, I look forward to being a part of that effort, which we know overall we have to expand access to healthcare in Georgia. And so if we have Keisha Lance Bottoms as a governor, and we have a majority in the state house, that's something that we can really look to get done. And so I definitely plan on being in the throes of it, in the thick of things, working to bring that type of change to the residents of District 81 and Georgians all across the state.
Michelle, thank you so much. We're really looking forward to working with you. And
Thank you.
We'll see you soon.
All right, I appreciate it. Thank you all so much.
Now I would like to introduce Beth Fuller. Yes, her district has been our white whale. We have worked in it the last 2 cycles to heartbreaking results, but this environment and with this candidate, we're going to do it. Beth has had a 25-year career in public health. She has both her master's and her doctor in public health. She was a contractor for the CDC when her job was eliminated recently because of the Trump administration. So she took her frustration out in this really great way for all of us. She and her husband have 2 boys, one of whom they adopted after accepting him as a foster child. So Beth, please tell us about you and how you're going to win.
First of all, thank you so much. I was so honored to have Necessary Trouble select our campaign to sponsor. And I do think that this year is going to be a great year. I've got a great team behind me, along with Necessary Trouble. I do want to give a shout out to Amanda Windler, who's my fantastic campaign manager, and she's on the Zoom too. My roots in Georgia run really deep. I grew up in Druid Hills. I went to Druid Hills High School. I went to Emory. My parents went to Emory. My grandparents grew up in East Point. I mean, I've got really deep roots here, and I care a lot about this state. I have been in public health for 25 years. And the last 10 years, we're on a contract with the CDC. And as Pam mentioned, I got a letter saying your contract is terminated. You know, please don't contact us again. And it was just over very quickly. And I really grieved the loss of my job and what was happening to the CDC. And as it was being dismantled, I told my friend, it was like I was watching a murder of a really, a close family member. It was really, really difficult, but I wasn't ready to give up. And so I had a lot of talk with my husband about what am I going to do now? And I had worked in community health for so long. And then one day I got a text message from a friend that said, would you consider running for office? I'm not kidding. And the text message, I read it and I go, well, maybe we should talk about this because I had never thought about it. It's not something I had considered. But as I talked to more and more people, my inner circle and my colleagues and things like that, it started to make more sense to me in that I didn't want to stop serving. I didn't want to stop working to make healthy communities. And I know the power of policy. Policy can shape people's lives for the good and the bad. And I am infuriated by the way Republicans are using policy right now. So I really warmed up to the idea, and I thought, I am not happy with the direction we are going in. I want a different kind of world for my kids. And so I'm going to step in rather than step out. I'm going to step in and jump in and really fight for this. So because I'm a public health person, a lot of my issues are tied directly to health. So Medicaid expansion is one that I'm really passionate about. And really the healthcare system is unsustainable. I think everybody knows that. And so we really need to do some serious thinking about how to structure the healthcare system and the insurance market so that it's supportive of health. I also think community safety is really important, and a wide range of what that means. It also means gun safety issues, I think are really important, and everything we can do to just make a healthy community. So that is my commitment to fight for things that help a healthy community. The current representative is aligned with the Republican leadership and votes in lockstep with the Republican leadership. And so that has to change because I do not think that reflects our district and what the district wants. And that's what I keep hearing over and over and over again. And so this needs to be the year that some change happens. The great news is that we're getting some really good data. We talked about Democrats showing up, and we had of the Democratic people that voted in the primary, 35% of them were new primary voters. So people showed up to vote in the midst of the Republicans trying to suppress the vote and discourage people. Fulton County said, not so fast. We're going to go the other way. And they showed up. And that is so encouraging to me. So we are doing a lot of voter outreach. We've already knocked on 1,000 doors. We know along with necessary trouble, those numbers are going to skyrocket. And we're going to talk to as many voters as possible up and down the district. I believe they put a link to a map. The district is interesting. It runs all the way from Roswell down through Sandy Springs, down through Buckhead, because it was gerrymandered specifically for this Republican incumbent. But every year, the margin gets closer and closer. And this last year, in 2024, the margin was 1,300 votes. Well, guess how many new voters we had in the primary? More than that. So it's a great sign, right? I see some snapping and I love it. It's really a good sign. This district voted for Kamala Harris. We voted for Joe Biden. And so it's very, very flippable. We're going to try to get as many Democrats out to vote as possible, people who voted before, people who haven't, and also talk to people in the middle, because there are a lot of people who know that things aren't going in the right direction. There's a lot of momentum, a lot of passion, and we're going to capitalize on all that, and we're going to flip this district. And I just can't tell you how grateful I am to have Necessary Trouble behind me in this fight. My dad was a Superior Court judge, so I grew up with this reverence for the Constitution, with the reverence for the idea that we're all created equal and that due process is important and necessary. And so if I can participate in standing up for those ideals, then it's my honor to do so. And I really appreciate the support. And my mom, I have to talk a little bit about my parents because they, although they're no longer with us, they are a big part of me and the reason I know I can do this. So my mom had Parkinson's for 15 years, and she went to every single lecture at Emory. She participated in clinical trials. She believed in science. And we just can't let those things go. We can't let the Constitution go, and we can't let science go. So my parents instilled this love in me of democracy, the Constitution, science, and equality. All of those things are under attack. And so we have got to fight back. And with you guys, with your help, I know we can. And I'm excited to get out there and do the work. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have.
Thank you, Beth. One question for you. Just the fact that Deborah Silcox did a lot better than Trump in 2024. People obviously, she has this image of being sort of a reasonable Republican, not MAGA. How do you deal with that?
Well, it's not an easy thing because, like you said, she does come across as moderate. But when there is a controversial vote, she often leaves. So she will leave the chamber when there's a controversial vote because she's stuck in terms of, I don't want to disappoint the Republican leadership. And she knows the people in the district want something different. So instead of standing up and taking a vote, she leaves. She's done that for gun issues. She just, that's her MO. So I don't think we're in a point in time in our history where leaving is an acceptable way to behave. I mean, we need to stand up and take action, take a vote, and stand up for Georgia. Don't just walk out because it's a hard thing to do. And there are a lot of hard things going on right now, and we need people that are willing to do the work, even when things are hard. So that is, and people don't like that. People say, when I talk to constituents, they're like, well, that's her job. Why isn't she voting? That's why we sent her there. And so that's one thing we're gonna talk about. And also the environment this year is just, people are realizing the severity of what we're going through. And it's not something you can kind of just brush off of, oh, it's not that bad. The fact is, it is that bad. And she's participating in it being that bad with the way that she votes and the people that she aligns herself with. So that's my response.
Great answer. Thank you so much. And thank you to Beth and Mishael for joining us tonight. And now I'd like to turn it over to Onika.
Thanks, y'all.
Thank you so much, Pam. Thank you, Sheila, Peter, Mishael, and Beth, for sharing your vision and reminding us just how much is at stake in these elections. We've heard why these races matter. Now I'd like to take just a moment before we hear from our work groups to talk to you about a small little thing. I want you to think about your why. Before you think about what you can do in this movement, think about what motivates you to be here. What issue keeps you showing up? What future are you fighting for? Who are you doing this for? The truth is, this work is a marathon. It's not a sprint. There will be long days, difficult moments, and times when progress feels slower than we'd like. During these times, your why is what you'll come back to. It's what keeps you in the game when things get hard. Once you're connected to your purpose, finding your place in the movement becomes much easier. Necessary Trouble has incredible volunteers doing meaningful work every single week. And no matter your schedule, experience, or skill set, there's a place for you. As you hear about each work group, if something sparks your interest, Please put your name and your email in the chat. Someone from that team will reach out and help you get connected. Let's begin with one of the most impactful ways to reach voters, which is canvassing. Please welcome Anne Marie.
Thank you, Onika. And hello, fellow troublers. I am here to remind everyone that canvassing is the best way to get out the vote, and that we really need to get out the vote for our 4 candidates. I know it's uncomfortable for some of you to knock on doors, but remember, we're knocking on friendly doors, other Dems, and we'll be going out in twos. So anybody who's never canvassed before will be paired up with a big brother or big sister. I think we really did make a difference for our previous canvassing candidate, Jasmine Clark. So I'm hoping that that small but mighty team that came out to canvass for her will come out again for Beth and Mishael. I know the campaigns plan to coordinate efforts with the PSC candidates, Peter and Sheila. That will be a big draw for us because it's so easy to talk about the PSC. Everyone's aware of the high cost of energy, the big bad data centers, and the harm to the environment that our current PSC commissioners are allowing Georgia Power to do. We will be talking to the campaigns now to find out how they want to work with Necessary Trouble. I and my co-leads, Steve Weisbrod and Nikita Smeshko, will be sending out notices to all of you who had signed up previously, but we would love to recruit more people. So please, please put your name in the chat so we can build this team. Thank you.
Thank you, Anne Marie. We know that face-to-face conversations remain one of the most effective ways to contact voters or to connect with voters. But if knocking on doors is not your thing, don't worry. There are plenty other ways to make a real difference. Next, we'll hear about another critical part of our voter outreach strategy, which is phone banking. Please welcome Valerie.
Valerie, you're muted.
Thank you. I was so excited getting started. I'm really excited about the candidates, and hearing them one right after the other has just made me that more excited. And this year we're doing phone banking slightly differently, which I'm also excited about. One of the things that the PSC is looking at doing is we know that there are a lot of communities that are going to their commissioners upset about the data centers. And so that has become a statewide issue along with the price of power. And so what the PSC is going to do is set up town halls in a lot of those communities so that people can go and hear that there's more than the commissioners who can do something if we can flip it. And so where the phone banking team comes in is we will be asked to call those communities ahead of time to let them know where those town halls will be, when they'll be, and to show up. So really excited about doing that on the front end so they can go out and hear there are other people. There's other thing besides the commissioners who can help out. The other thing that we're going to be doing that's different with the candidates, and Anne Marie mentioned it, is that the PSC campaign manager and campaigns are going to hook up with Mishael's and also with Beth's, so that when we make phone calls, we'll be calling for both. So when you call for Beth, you'll be calling for the PSC and vice versa. And when you call for Mitchell, you'll also be calling and talking about the PSC. So you don't have to choose one or the other or make 3 phone calls. You can call and make a difference and flip all of those with those phone calls. So really excited about doing that. And whether it's the tail wagging the dog or the dog wagging the tail, we're going to get happy dogs. We're going to get people to the polls and make a difference and get everybody elected. And so I cannot wait to get started on this and pair up all of these great people and make these phone calls and make these connections and get it done. Thank you. Put your name in the chat. If you've never done it before, we can, I can show you how to do it. We'll talk through. We could do it as a group, or we can send you the links. So there are a lot of different ways to phone bank, and you can do it anytime that the link is open. So it's not restricted to any certain days or times. So come join the phone bank team. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Valerie. Every phone call helps us reach voters who might otherwise never hear from us. And every conversation has the potential to make a difference. Another favorite many of our volunteers like to get involved in is postcard writing, a simple but powerful way to encourage people to vote. Let's bring on Kate King. Muted.
Am I unmuted now? Okay, yes. And yes, postcarding is powerful, and there's research that shows that it works. So if you're not brave enough to knock doors or pick up the phone, or even if you are that brave, postcarding is a great way to help these candidates. We will be, within the next couple of weeks, we'll have postcards for Mishael, we'll have postcards for Beth. I think we'll be doing postcards for the PSC. We're still sort of figuring out how that's going to work. But you can have a postcard party. You can do it at home in your pajamas at 3 a.m. If you are not already on my list, put your name and email in the chat, and I will hook you up.
I'm telling you, you're muted and I'm muted.
Yeah, I was wondering.
Yeah, thank you, Kate. It's amazing how a handwritten note can motivate someone to head to the polls. Our next update shows how these volunteer efforts connect to the broader statewide strategy and the work happening across Georgia. Please welcome Karen Davenport.
Thank you so much, Anika. And as we have heard today throughout all of our presentations, it's important to remember that Democrats are fighting for the people and Republicans are fighting for the billionaires and corporations. When Anika said always recognize your why, to me this is just such a great motivation, because every day we get up, I feel like if you get up and you're breathing, there's so many things that you can do. I'm going to ask Karen to put in the chat a link to the coordinated campaign offices. There are offices all over DeKalb, and the sheets that she's putting out to you list the people who are field organizers, the addresses of those offices. And I want to invite you, if you, after you get up at 3 and write postcards, and then you go back and take a nap, and then you come and make some phone calls between 10 and 11, just drop by the office, because there are lots of opportunities for you to do many, many things. There will also be signs there, as we get closer to August and September, or there's signs you can put in your car that you can tape on the windows that encourage people as you go various places to remind them about the election and who they should vote for. I also want to share with you the DeKalb Dems is putting together some little signature cards that I'll be glad to mail to anyone as you go to they're nonpartisan. It just says remember to vote, reminds people about the early voting dates, reminds them about to check their registration when you go to your churches or book clubs. You can pass those out. And then we'll have half sheets that remind people about everybody that's running on the ballot and why they should vote for them. So if you'd like any of those, I'll be glad to mail them to you, and you can put your name and address in the chat. Thank you, Anika.
Thank you so much, Karen. Now, I hope everyone can see the common thread running through today's meeting. Whether you're canvassing, making phone calls, writing postcards, supporting candidates, or educating voters, every role matters. And together, those efforts are how we build the movement and win elections. If one of those opportunities spoke to you today, don't forget to put your name and your email in the chat. We love to help you find your place in this work. We have one more special guest to close out today's program, and I truly think you're going to enjoy hearing from her. Before we talk about that, or before we move to Lisa, I'm going to bring Becky back up to share one more thing.
Thank you, Onika, and huge gratitude for all of the leads that you've heard from. I want to just make a note that there will be other ways to engage in the campaigns. Also, we will be doing bannering, we will be doing additional things, but I just want to reiterate how crucial this year is, and we are hoping that every single troubler finds some way of plugging in to some aspect of this campaign work. Every piece of work we do in every category depends on it. So thank you for those of you who have already signed up, and for those who haven't yet, I hope you will find a really good place to connect. And a final word about the campaign work. No matter what we're working on the PSC, we're working on for Mishael, we're working for Beth, we're also working for everybody up ballot, right? So every door we knock will also be to elect everybody, all the Dems running statewide. You don't have to decide, right? You can do it all. You can do it all. Every time we do it all, we just start with a particular focus. So very much gratitude. And I wanted to announce one event, a bit of a save the date and a way to sign up. Let me just share my screen again. Next weekend is a very important weekend for Necessary Trouble because it is the Good Trouble Weekend of Action. And there will be a number of events scheduled throughout that weekend. All of them are about honoring John Lewis, honoring his defense and fight for democracy. And we are named for him. So this should be our event, right? This should be something that we all show up for. The flagship event for the weekend will be a rally midday next Saturday between 12 and 3 in downtown Atlanta. The specific location is still being sorted out. Atlanta is always challenging to work with in terms of permitting, so that's still being arranged. But I hope you will save that 12 to 3 next Saturday, and please sign up in the chat for the Necessary Trouble Sign Up Genius for that event. We will make sure you get details. And especially if you would like to attend with other troublers, we would love to have as many troublers as possible attending that. And on that note, we're gonna shift to, as Onika had said, the final part of our program, and to introduce the next piece, I'm going to turn this over to Lisa Vu.
Okay, thank you, Becky. I'm pleased to present Joyce Barlow, who is here to talk to us about a different approach to canvassing, one called relational canvassing. She's part of Necessary Trouble's Rural Partnerships work group, where we are there to build support for Democratic candidates in rural Georgia. So I'm glad to be introducing Joyce on that group's behalf. In addition to phone banking and postcard writing, canvassing is an important avenue to help get out the vote. And so I was really inspired when I heard of what relational canvassing is, and I hope that you will be too after you hear from Joyce. So please join me in welcoming Joyce Barlow. She is a former candidate for Georgia State Representative House District 151. She's also a small business owner and registered nurse. In 2022, she became the inaugural inductee into the Georgia Nursing Hall of Fame, which recognizes nurses with at least 15 years of nursing experience and a record for civic engagement and positive impact in nursing and healthcare. Joyce serves as the board chair for Empowerment Southwest Georgia, an organization that helps underserved citizens of rural Southwest Georgia. Welcome, Joyce.
Hello, hello, hello. Good afternoon. Good afternoon. Thank you all for having me. I am thrilled to be here to make this presentation, and thank you, Lisa, for that kind introduction. What I want to talk about today is empower. That's part of what I do, but I'm going to talk about conversational canvassing, changing the conversation. Let me put my PowerPoint up and we can talk about it, and any questions that you may have, if you'll try to hold those until we get to that point. that we can. Let me move things around here and move these things around a bit. It's okay. Let's see here. This is still in my way somewhat. All right, I want to talk about what is our this PowerPoint will talk about mostly what we do, who we are, and how we go about doing what is presented in Empower as far as conversational canvassing. We're doing deep conversational canvassing here in Southwest Georgia, and it really takes a bit of time of being focused, of being ready to present the message to make sure everyone understands who we are and what we do. Right now, we are getting formulated and ready to move forward. We've hired people, and this is about door knocking, but it's different. It's as different as from lightning as it is from having a lightning bug that flies throughout the air. And we're mostly focusing on Southwest Georgia. If I can get my slide to move over to the next slide. Okay, our purpose, simply put, is to get out the vote for deep canvassing and for people to vote a Democratic ticket when they do vote, and to raise funds to train the trainers and the canvassers. The 5 counties that we have identified thus far is Clay, Dougherty, Randolph, Marion, and Sumter County. We've identified roughly, I would say, 7,000, 5,000 people who are infrequent voters in those areas that we pulled them from the Democratic listings to make sure we go out and reach them in a different method from what they're accustomed to being reached. Let me go to the next slide. Now, progress. We've had 14 canvassers from 5 counties that have signed up thus far, and they've completed 2 full trainings with David Flesher and a couple of other Change the Conversation staff. For those who do not know what deep canvassing is, this is an exchange of information, creating a really deep emotional connection with the voter that motivates them to vote, changing the conversation. It's more than just knocking on the door, asking people, have you voted? Will you go out and vote? And here's a list of folks to vote for. It goes beyond that. It is a connection that it takes a bit longer, for sure. Introducing yourself, tell them who you are, and sharing life experiences that are relevant and personal to you, therefore asking the person what is relevant and important to them that could possibly get them to think about voting, to go out and vote. What is the connection, and who do you really love? Who do you care about? Once we get that conversation started, it opens the door for a connection, having a deep emotional connection with the voter that motivates them. This is long lasting. It connects with the head and the heart for them to go out and vote. And that is what we are all about, trying to utilize that method of getting folks to vote. Get back over here to my last one. So that being said, that is what we are. We need your support. We're asking for your support. We're asking for you to help us with this project that we're working on. We need all the help that we can get. Deep canvassing was started by changing the conversation in Philadelphia in 2020, and it boosted voting rates by 10%. And they were even more effective in 2024. And ladies and gentlemen, it actually works when you have that connecting conversation that has an emotional touch with it. We're asking for your support financially. Thus far, we're trying to raise $7,000. We have raised $2,000 of those dollars to get people out to vote. Those infrequent voters, who have disconnected, those that we've been able to capture that may or may not be purged or possibly will be purged if they do not vote, connect, talk with them, and get them to go out and vote. This project is sponsored by the Randolph and the Dougherty County Democratic Committee, and that is the donation link right there. After I finish taking questions, I will gladly drop this link in the chat for you to make a donation to our cause. We have train one person to help train the remainder. They have to go to Philadelphia and get the training, then come back and give the training in our area, because it's important that they fully understand that this is more than just door knocking. I'll stop right there and I'll take a few questions.
Thank you, Joyce. One of the questions we have is what types of voters will you be targeting? People who
Good
don't
question.
vote regularly,
Good
for
question.
instance?
These voters are pulled from the Democratic information. Vote builders, we pull infrequent voters, and those infrequent voters, those that have a low propensity to go out and vote or haven't voted in several years. We go out and they're Democrats as far as we can tell. Those are the doors we will go to knock, to have those discussions and those emotional conversations.
Thank you. And then do you make multiple visits to the same voter?
We try to make a connection initially when we're talking with them, and if they want us to return, if we feel like they need us to return, or they may not have as much time to give us, because changing the conversation is much longer than a mere knock on the door and ask someone to go out and vote or hand literature. It may take up to 15 to 20 minutes of conversation. Person may not be able to give us that amount of time initially, and we say, okay, you're busy, you can't converse with us. When's a good time to return? And we try to look to the future and early voting and find out if they'll need a ride to the polls. We collect all that information while we are at the door. We talk about, we may or may not cover the ticket, and we have been working also to get people aware and understand what's going on with our state elections and as far as voting, and our senatorial election with Senator Ossoff.
Thank you. And we have some questions about sort of like what kind of conversations you may have. Can you give an example of what that conversation may be? What
Sure.
types of questions are asked?
Sure. When we go up to the door, of course, we introduce ourselves. We have a little name badge on telling them who we are, and we're here to talk about voting. We have to, some may say, I'm not interested. The system has failed me. Nobody does anything for me. Well, we can say, well, I can see that you're sort of disappointed in what's going on, but there are reasons to vote. And is there someone that you in particularly care about in your life? And most of the time, people will give an answer then. They'll say either their children, their grandchildren, a loved one of some sort. And we say, yeah, well, I really care about this. Of course, love my parents, but my grandparents. My grandparents were the first ones to take me to vote. And I witnessed and watched that because they explained about voting and what it meant when they first voted, and that why it was important. They took the time to explain to me why I needed to vote, the difference in what it made. So let's talk about who is important to you. After we've opened up and talked and given them an example of who we are, what we feel about whomever we care about, they may say, well, I have a daughter that I want her to vote, but she is so angry with the system. I've tried to talk with her. She just does not communicate with me. And we say, well, what would you like to see change? What would you like to see better? What impacts her? She complains about, per se, the money she has to pay for her student loans. It's unreasonable. It's unfair. Those are some of the conversations we've had. And why? Well, it depends on whom you have in office. If you go out and vote, then you get the right person in office. Therefore, your daughter will not be as bitter. Their loan may be, we're not guaranteeing, the loan may be forgiven. It's a start in having someone that understands the grassroots, the necessity of having someone in power, ultimately in the position that can put in a program that supports student loan forgiveness. And that way it would ease some of the bitterness your daughter feels about it, and you would also feel better. Are we correct? And that's where the conversation, we try to get the person engaged to talk. When they hit on a topic that's near and dear to their heart and their life, the conversations become real.
Thank you. Yeah, we're seeing a lot of love for this approach in the chat. One other question is, what are the major expenses for your organization?
The major expenses. The major expenses are getting people out to support us. There are very, very, very few volunteers that will go out and work daily. The Georgia heat down this way and the humidity is almost unbearable having someone go out. Therefore, not door knocking, canvassing after people have gotten off from work or in the afternoons after 3 or 4 o'clock. It's scorching hot. The humidity. Having a volunteer just doesn't work. We have to pay people to go out to perform deep canvassing, and they have to be trained. Because if they're feeling like if I've got to get trained, or even if you do go out and do a knock, there is some compensation expected. And that is why we have to have monies to reimburse them for their gas and to take the time to have those sort of lengthy conversations, 20 to 30 minutes with the voter to understand why, to reconnect. Why should I vote? What is important? It's all about that emotional connection with voting. Other questions? I thought I saw something about measuring success. We
Yes.
measure success about those people who have voted. We don't know who they voted for. We can look and see if they voted recently. Afterwards, those that we actually take to the polls, those that we sometimes try to keep a record and phone bank and call. Did you go to vote? Do you need any help? Are there any comments, any questions, anything else we can do that we can go over, something we can explain? And it takes man hours to have and paying people to have that level of commitment, the volunteer people to follow through.
Thank you. And there is a question about that. Had you connected with Senator Ossoff's campaign?
Yes, we have. Well, yes, we have. Yes, we have. We've connected with him in his campaign in several different ways. Several of us participate in their ambassador meetings. Several of us attend his clerical meetings and participate. Several of us communicate directly with several of his lead campaign manager people in the committee. So we are connected in several ways with his campaign staff.
Thank you very much. I will pass it on to you, Becky.
All right. Well, we appreciate you all taking the time, and we really ask for your donations, and we will drop the link in the chat that will help us attract the right people that have a heart and a commitment to go out and canvass in the heat and the humidity in Georgia. Thank you.
And Nurse Barlow, thank you so very much. And I just want to take a minute here and make a little add-on pitch. So if you would drop that link in the chat, we're just going to take a moment to let additional troublers who might want to support. And I want to say two things about this. One is that Nurse Barlow has always been so committed to this area. She was a very strong candidate and really should have won. And in the most recent redistricting, the Republicans were so scared of her that they drew a little line around her house so she would not be in the district, right? Nasty, nasty.
Right,
yeah.
right.
So, and so when she could no longer be a candidate, she dug in and is doing this work, and it is heroic work. And I want to say again about Necessary Trouble's deep commitment to lifting up democratic organizing in rural areas, and this is your chance to be able to really support that kind of organizing in rural areas. So please donate. And on that note, I think I turn it back over to PJ.
Yes, yes, yes. Wow, what an incredible afternoon. Take your utility bill to the polls with you. I'm going to remember that, okay? I'm going to use that. But before we wrap up today, let's give one more virtual round of applause to all of our amazing speakers and candidates and work group leaders and moderators, volunteers, and everyone who worked behind the scenes to make this evening happen. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Let's give them a virtual applause, y'all. Okay. All right. Thank you for showing up. Your time matters, your voice matters, and your willingness to stay informed and get involved is exactly how we build stronger communities and win elections. If something you've heard this evening has inspired you, don't let it end when the Zoom ends. Join a work group. Sign up to be a volunteer. Bring a friend next time. Every conversation, every call, every door knock, every postcard written, it all adds up. At this time, I'd like for you to mark your calendars for our next Necessary Trouble meeting, which would be Sunday, August the 9th. We'd love to see you all back, and hopefully you'll bring someone with you. Thank you again for being here. Have a wonderful evening now, and I'll turn it over to Becky to send us out with our closing song. Becky?
Thank you, PJ. And those of you who have been with Necessary Trouble for a little while know that we always end with a song. And let me just give me a minute to kind of pull it, make sure it's pulling it up here. It's always a little complicated for me. This one is quite a wonderful one, and I hope you enjoy it. And it is, I think, speaks to needing to do this work. This was shot in a refugee camp, and needing to do this work and needing also to do it with as much joy, right? With as much joy, as much love as we can muster. So hold on for me just a second, and here we go. The meeting going on.
All good, guys. Thank you.
Bye. Go have your secret meeting now.
It's not going to be that interesting.
Good luck, Pat.
um,
Bye. Adore